1 o'clock. We're going to get started, and others will join as they will. So people are trickling in. My name is Sean Scallon. I'm Operations Director at the Victorian Bioenergy Network, and we're bringing you today episode 1 of a 3-part series on biomethane. And welcome to you all. And so let's get rolling. And so before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands across the country on which we meet today, and we will meet on many different lands. I would like to also pay my respects to elders past and present. So this is episode 1 of a 3-part series focusing on the opportunities that biomass to biomethane presents. It is a key pathway for creating a sustainable and low-carbon energy future that empowers regional Australia. We would like to thank our sponsors, Gemina and LMS Energy, for their generous support of this webinar series. Gemina are a foundation, and LMS are a gold VBN member, and so we thank them for that support too. And they are indeed advocates for advancing biomethane policy development in Australia. And so, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our facilitator, Dr. Muscaya from Energy, will be our facilitator today. A few words about Kate, and then I'll hand over to Kate. Kate's role within LMS Energy is Supervisor of AD, Anaerobic Digestion, and Renewable Fuels. Kate's background is in industrial and environmental microbiology, with over 15 years experience in bioenergy and environmental science management, engineering and consulting. She specialises in biomass and waste-to-energy projects with a strong focus on biogas and biomethane. Kate's also a lecturer and researcher at Griffith University, which is must just add to your workload a bit, Kate, but welcome, and I'll hand over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. As Sean mentioned, I'm with LMS Energy, where I work on the development of anaerobic digestion, or AD, and biomethane projects across the country. About LMS is the largest bioenergy company in Australia, with more than 60 sites across the country and also New Zealand and the US. We've been delivering bioenergy and methane abatement projects for almost 30 years, and in recent years, we've been increasingly focused on working with agricultural and industrial partners to turn organic residues into renewable energy and provide some long-term benefits to the regions. So I'll be moderating today's session that focuses on the opportunity for farmers. To set the scene, I'm going to walk through some fundamentals of bioenergy, what biomass is, why it matters, and how it can be converted into renewable gas through anaerobic digestion. And we'll then hear from our guest speakers, who will expand on these topics from different perspectives. So we've got Kevin Lowe from Blunamy, who will explore the broad opportunity of using biomass for energy production, and also outline the different bioenergy pathways and expand how these contribute to regional development. And we've got Dale Hollis from Bundaberg Ag Food and Fibre Alliance, BAFA, who will bring this back to the farm level, discussing the practical benefits for farmers and how biomass to biomethane projects can support the agricultural sector and hopefully unlock new revenue streams. So bioenergy. Basically, bioenergy is energy produced from organic materials, things that grow or derived from things that grow. It is renewable. It's locally available resource that can be converted into electricity, heat, or renewable fuels such as biomethane. It's very important that it's one of the few renewable energy sources that can be stored and easily delivered when and where it's needed. That makes it particularly valuable and unique. So building a strong bioenergy industry in Australia actually offers many advantages. It reduces our reliance on fossil fuels, it helps cut emissions in sectors that are difficult to electrify, and it also improves long-term energy security. And of course, creates new commercial opportunities for primary producers, including farmers, who can supply biomass for bioenergy products. When we say biomass, we are simply talking about organic material. For energy purposes, that usually includes agricultural residues, industrial byproducts and effluents, food and organic waste, manures, and also purpose-grown energy crops. Biomass that we use for bioenergy production, commonly called feedstock. So for Australia, and particularly regional Australia, biomass represents a very large and not yet fully utilized energy resource. Each type of feedstock comes with its own commercial, technical, and logistical considerations. And at the same time, feedstock is the most critical factor of a bioenergy project. So understanding both the challenges and the opportunities early on is key to developing projects that actually work in practice, not just on paper. So how biomass is converted into biogas? We use the process of anaerobic digestion for that. That's a natural biological process. Their organics break down in the absence of oxygen, producing two valuable outputs. So biogas, which is a mixture of predominantly methane and carbon dioxide, and digestate, that's a nutrient-rich residual material. It can be used as a soil conditioner or fertilizer. So in practical terms, AD is a controlled version of what happens in a cow's stomach, but it's optimized for gas production. When we work on a project, we select feedstocks to optimize biochemical composition. Then the materials are pre-treated and fed into the digester tank. So tank-based engineered system. There are multiple technologies for AD process, but that's the most common one. And we also maintain controlled temperature and retention time for optimal biogas production. So the result is biogas that can be used directly for electricity or heat, or it can be upgraded to biomethane for injection into the gas grid. There are multiple upgrading technologies currently available in the market, and that clean the biogas, remove carbon dioxide and all the trace gases, and produce biomethane. So that's a carbon neutral, renewable, and chemically identical alternative to natural gas. The best thing about biogas and biomethane that it actually delivers emissions reduction across the whole value chain. So it prevents emissions from the uncontrolled decomposition of organic material. It displaces fossil fuels as an energy source, and it's returning organic carbon and nutrients to soil through digestion. That improves soil quality and reduces the need for synthetic or chemical fertilizers. It's not a new or experimental technology. It's widely deployed around the world. For example, the number of biomethane producing facilities in Europe has grown from 483 plants in 2018 to more than 1,300 in 2023, with Europe now producing over 3.5 billion cubic meters of biomethane, which is around 130 petajoules. In the United States, over 2,400 sites across all 50 states produce biogas today. Australia in general and Victoria in particular has diverse and abundant feedstocks suitable for biogas and biomethane production. So the main ones would be agricultural residues and sustainable dedicated energy crops, livestock manures and meat processing byproducts, fishery and aquaculture residues, food and beverage manufacturing wastes and effluents, municipal solid waste, not ideal, but can also be used for biogas production by AD, food and green organics, and other commercial and industrial organic wastes, including liquid effluents. Not all biomass or feedstocks are the same. Different materials would produce different amount of energy in the same environment, in the same anaerobic environment. To put this into context, an average Victorian household uses about 54 gigajoules of natural gas each year. It is higher than most other Australian states, largely because of winter heating. To produce that same amount of energy, 54 gigajoules, using biomethane, we would need roughly 200 tons a year of liquid animal waste. It sounds like a lot because that material is liquid and the solids content is very low and the energy density is low. But we would only need about 20 tons of food or vegetable waste per annum, or as little as 9 tons a year of crop residues of purpose-grown energy crops. In terms of scale of the plants that we're looking at, they range from 50 to 100, from 50 to 1,000 terajoules per year. And a 1,000 terajoule plant would require around 300 to 350,000 tons of biomass annually. So it only takes 9 tons to supply an average household in Victoria, and the size of the plant is around 350,000 tons of material. And it can only be achieved when the feedstocks are sourced locally and reliably. So that's why I think agricultural feedstocks represent a significant opportunity for farmers, and also why they are absolutely critical for bioenergy project developers. Crop residues, materials without a valuable market due to oversupply or weather impact, and also sustainable purpose-grown bioenergy crops can all provide a reliable feedstock base. And for these projects to succeed, developers and farmers need to work closely together, forming long-term partnerships that deliver value, certainty and resilience for both sides. I think that's the most important. So I hope it covers the basics a little bit. And I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Kevin Lowe, the principal at Bluenemy. Kevin is an economist with more than 10 years experience across the energy and climate transition, spanning both public and private sectors. He leads strategic advisory and commercial due diligence on energy transition assets, and currently oversees Bluenemy's advisory work on low carbon fuels across the Asia Pacific region. So today, Kevin will take us deeper into the bigger picture perspective, looking at biomass as an untapped resource, how different feedstocks can support different bioenergy pathways, and the role of bioenergy in strengthening regional economies and communities. Kevin, welcome, and over to you.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Kate, for the kind introduction, and you've covered very well the different feedstocks for biomethane. So I'm here to really introduce what the opportunity here is. I think for the longest time, we see bioenergy as a bit of a fringe solution or an alternative, an option for decarbonization. But today, it's increasingly seen as a vital pathway. And what's really important is that there is sufficient feedstock in Australia for biomethane to meet the demands of decarbonizing the industries in Australia. When it comes to feedstocks, we consider the theoretical potential for feedstocks, as well as what is recoverable based on existing policies and agricultural practices. And in this year, we actually launched a report with Energy Networks Australia, where we looked into multiple studies across Australia. And collectively, they suggest that there is sufficient recoverable feedstock in the East Coast to produce biomethane that can meet the needs of the industrial sector. So we're no longer talking about an abstract solution that is far off in the time horizon, but something that is chemically identical, as Kate mentioned, to natural gas that's being used now, but it's renewable. Around 230 30 petajoules of natural gas was consumed by industrial customers last year in the east coast of Australia. So we're talking about Queensland, we're talking about Victoria, New South Wales, Tasmania, and South Australia. But the studies have also estimated that there's sufficient recoverable feedstock potential up to 300 petajoules in this very same states. So there is already sufficient energy potential captured in the feedstock. What's really great about biomethane is that, as Kate alluded to, the range of feedstock that the proven technology anaerobic digestion today can take is pretty broad. And she's listed it, so I won't go through it again. But in the future, there are new pathways that are going to open up that also can take in a broader range of feedstock to produce methane. So we've got agroforestry biomass that can be fed into gasification process, and then methanation, which produce biomethane as well. And at the same time, there are proven technologies around using fats, oil, grease, feedstocks, oil seeds to produce biofuels, that's liquid fuels, that can plug into decarbonizing various other sectors as well. And not just that, what's really exciting and interesting about biomethane is that the very same product, biomethane, can subsequently be fed into new pathways to produce the same low carbon liquid fuels like bio-LPG or even sustainable aviation fuel, which means that the very same feedstock that you start off with, the biomass, the organic matter that Kate has mentioned, can actually contribute to the very different biofuel, bioenergy products and help to decarbonize various different sectors, not just industrial, but also some of the transport sector. Beyond that, there's a question of how all of these activities is going to contribute to regional development. Now, Kate already alluded to from her comparison of the energy potential that majority of this feedstock potential is actually going to come from agricultural residues or agricultural feedstock, whether it's waste or even dedicated energy crops, cover crops that are grown that can contribute to the biomass potential. This means that the estimates that I've just given, which is really a snapshot of how much potential is available today, the theoretical and recoverable potential that's available today, it's not static. When agricultural practices are improved or there are more rotational cropping that takes place, the amount of biomass that can feed into bioenergy actually increases. And the future growth of feedstocks available can also come from improved yields and other increased sustainable practices. And how the bioenergy sector can contribute back to the agriculture sector is that it provides a new demand stream for agricultural products beyond the traditional demand stream. And that helps to diversify the revenues of farmers, and that helps to also anchor new demand sources that protects the income streams. In fact, most European economies that are, of course, much further ahead in the bioenergy space, bioenergy, biomethane in particular, has been driving income diversification for farmers while helping to reduce agriculture sector emissions from waste. Biomethane plants, the setting up of feedstock logistics, handling, supply chains also contribute to job creation in the region. Based on experiences in Europe, 1 petajoule of biomethane production capacity would drive up to 100 new jobs created directly, and many more indirect jobs that comes through the rest of the supply chain that is created from this activity. Now, I hope this sets a bit of that broader context of that interaction between the bioenergy sector as well as the agricultural sector. Let me pass the time back to Kate.
Thank you, Kevin. My back. Thanks for the great overview and for setting the broader context. To build on that, we now want to bring the conversation right back to the farm gate, to the people who produce and supply feedstocks and help shape projects that can work long-term for regional communities. It's my pleasure to introduce Dale Hollis, Executive Director of Bundaberg Ag Food and Fibre Alliance. Dale brings deeper experience from across Queensland's agricultural, water and energy landscape. He's a director of the Bundaberg Regional Irrigators Group and serves on Sunwater's Bundaberg Irrigation Advisory Committee and is a member of the Queensland Farmers Federation Water and Energy Policy Committee. Buffer has also been closely involved in supporting feasibility study for one of our projects, and their input has been incredibly valuable in shaping the project concept. Dale will be speaking from the farmer's perspective about what biomethane really means for the agricultural sector, exploring how biomethane can potentially support and enhance agricultural businesses and what the actual value proposition for farmers is. With that, I'll hand over to Dale to walk us through the practical on-the-ground view. Welcome, Dale.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. I guess I'll start with a bit of background about BAFA, or Bundaberg Ag Food and Fibre Alliance. We formed because Bundaberg's a bit different to other areas in Queensland. Most of our agriculture is very intensive irrigated agriculture, and a lot of the farming organisations that are based in Brisbane don't really understand the complexity of farming here. We have 124 different crops that we grow here under irrigation. And our vision for BAFA is to present a unified food and fibre, renewable fuel, fishing, forestry and foliage sectors in the Bundaberg LGA. To be a member of BAFA, you have to have your ABN registered in the Bundaberg Council area. So Bundaberg, our gross product value of the whole Bundaberg LGA is around about $8 billion a year. 1.75 billion of that comes from irrigated intensive agriculture. Another 300 to 350 million comes from value-added products. I'm quite certain that a number of you will know the most famous Bundaberg beverage that we grow here, or that's produced here, that being Bundaberg ginger beer. There's also rum and a few other things that are done too. So I guess 25% of the district's revenue comes from irrigated intensive agriculture. Sugarcane is the cornerstone crop because of its risk profile. As a farmer, farmers face pretty much 4 types of risk: production risk, floods, fires, droughts, pests and diseases; market risk in prices and access to markets; institutional risk, policy changes in government, and lack of policy in government, plus financial risk. Sugarcane pretty much ticks all of those boxes. You can burn it and still sell it, as long as you don't have a flood over the heart of the plant for more than 3 days. It'll continue to grow. It can be flattened by a cyclone, and really the only thing that can kill it so that you haven't got an income is a very, very hot fire or an extended flood. Marketing. Over the years, we've developed very sophisticated marketing processes where we share risk and reward with the sugar mill, who actually converts the cane to sugar, and we price that on the international market. Institutional risk is probably one that we face a lot, and I guess in Queensland with some changes in the renewable targets coming up, or I'm not certain whether it got through last night or not. That's just one example of institutional risk. And the other one's financial risk. And because we're in general small businesses, if we make the wrong decision, we're out the back door and sold up and gone. So because of that, farmers tend to be reasonably cautious with adopting new concepts, new crops, or new revenue streams. There is opportunity for biomethane in the Bundaberg region, and as I like to say, it's great being a pioneer, just as long as you're not the first one. And that's the reason. That's the reason why we think biomethane has a reasonable prospect of success. And we're also very impressed with how LMS has treated us, sat down with us and tried to understand what our perspective was, but at the same time, they have a commercial bent as well. So we identified with LMS agronomically suitable and financially viable feedstocks, and we've had a few learnings. The first learning is there is no free waste. Like when LMS first came to us, they said, oh, well, there's all this trash and bagasse, and we can just pick it up and put it through the plant. Well, trash on cone fields worth a lot of money to me. So if I leave it there, it suppresses weed growth, it stops transpiration from loss of water, and it's probably worth about 2 megalitres a hectare to me by leaving it there. So in value terms, that's about $500 a hectare. So for me to bale trash and send it off to the biodigester, I'd need to be compensated for that. There are a couple of exceptions with that in some specific areas. So bagasse is the other one. It's a byproduct. It comes out of milling the sugarcane, which is burnt to power the steam and to basically power the sugar mill. Bundaberg Sugar is very efficient with its biogas, with its bagasse, and it is a significant component of what they do. So there is no free waste. The second thing is we may be able to reroute some byproducts. One of the byproducts out of the sugar mill is mill mud, which traditionally has been used as an organic fertiliser spread in rather large quantities over the land. It could be rediverted through a biodigester and processed that way without actually impacting the ingredients that make it suitable for on-farm use. Similarly with dunder, which is the byproduct from manufacturing Bundaberg rum. So the second learning is that dedicated energy crops will be required to ensure constant feedstock for the volumes needed. Those feedstocks can be in rotation. We've identified 4. Sun hemp, soys, Indian mustard will go in rotation with sugarcane, and sweet sorghum in rotation with small crops. My view is that we will need specifically grown crops, and there are sugarcane varieties out there that are high in fibre that are used for this purpose in the United States. We've been talking to the people that own those varieties, and it is possible that we could grow those particular varieties to feed the biodigester. There's a lot of challenges, and one of the biggest challenges is there's been lots of failed concepts and projects come past us over the last 10 years. Safflower was going to be the be-all and end-all. We looked at it and it fell over. Second generation ethanol, that was touted as the saviour of everything, and similarly biodiesel. One of the big problems with biodigester is it's really easy to say 450,000 tonnes. Putting 450,000 tonnes across local government farm roads to a biodigester is expensive and very bloody hard to do. The other thing is specific machinery that may be required. For example, sweet sorghum harvesting requires a chopper, probably requires a moving deck trailer, and that equipment is very expensive to purchase, and there may be options for contractors. I hit on it before, institutional risk. At the moment, supply of dedicated feedstocks outside of a crop rotation scheme is pretty much frowned upon under the government putting food crops into energy. So we will need a change in that policy, but at the same time, that can change depending on government. So that's one of the risks that we'll need to address. I'm personally optimistic that biogas will work. And all the existing infrastructure pipelines and all that stuff's here in this region. And overall, the technology is not new. So I think it has every chance under the sun of getting up. And I think that's all I've got to say, Kate.
Thanks, Dale. That's a really helpful perspective. And also thanks for your optimistic view and trust in AD and bioenergy projects. We'll now move into our Q&A session. I think we had some great questions come through. Thanks to everyone online for posting them. Please keep your questions coming. We'd love to hear from you. So the first one, that's probably for me because that's the numbers from my presentation. 300,000 to 350,000 tons of one feedstock would not be easy to secure year on year with climate variations, market pressures, and transport costs and truck availability. Can feedstocks be changed from one year to the next or even within a year? So basically that's a pretty large plant. That's the amount of feedstock for a 1 petajoule plant. Yes, that's a significant amount, and we don't normally consider a single feedstock source. So that amount would be 5-6 different feedstocks. And if we consider energy crops or some agricultural residues, they would be supplied from multiple sources. We also always consider adequate storage capacity at the facility and pre-treatment system that can deal with different types of materials, making sure that the biological process is stable and consistent. Yes, we can change feedstocks. It's a biological system. It will eventually adapt to different type of material. If we consider different crops, so we can switch from winter crops to summer crops. Yeah, that would be slightly different composition, but yeah, absolutely, the system will adapt, and we can do that. And most of the agricultural feedstocks will be seasonal as well. So it's very important for us to make sure that we have enough storage and we have the pre-treatment system that will preserve the material for digestive feed during off-season. And sometimes we also consider, and it would be beneficial for us and potentially for farmers as well, that the material is actually stored on farm and delivered as required. Hopefully that addresses the question. So the next one, I think it's for Dale. How much money can a farmer expect from supplying feedstock to an AD? Would they get paid by the ton or by the amount of biomethane produced? So Dale, if you want to answer this one, and then I can add as well.
Yes is the answer to that. And I'll give her an example. And if you're the Andrew Dougal, I think you are, you know this. Sugarcane is actually paid for by its commercial cane sucrose content, which is measured in the lab as the farmer delivers the cane. So there is a contract that specifies the payment based on the sugarcane content. We've been working with LMS to get our minds around the content of biogas that can be achieved from a tonne of feedstock. The premise that we've been looking at here is that the minimum gross margin has to be a minimum of $500 a tonne. So, for example, if we're growing soybeans in rotation or sugarcane, if we can't make $500 a tonne out of it, most farmers would not bother. There are other options out there. So the actual lab testing and all of that and the contract out of that has to be developed, but I don't think it's all that hard, and I'm quite certain that's the model that's used overseas.
Yes, thank you, Dale. Yeah, definitely for us, it will be based on the amount of material delivered to the biogas plant. And we would also require certain quality. There are variations, of course. It doesn't need to be perfect material. As I said before, we can take off-spec crops, we can take residue. It will be based on the amount of material delivered to the biogas plant. Why can't be based on the biomethane produced? Because the actual biomethane production in the system depends on other factors as well, not just the feedstock quality. It will be driven by the temperature, overall composition of feedstocks, of feedstock mixture. There could be some contaminants or inhibitors from other feedstocks. So it's definitely not a farmer's responsibility to guarantee certain biomethane or biogas production per ton of feedstock. Okay, next one. Are there options to generate biogas on farm and transport just the biogas to the generation facility, sort of like a biomethane grid? Kevin, would you
Maybe
like
I
to
can.
answer?
Yep. Thanks, Kate. I think this is interesting because it's been done in some other contexts. So in Malaysia, for example, they do produce biogas at well, these are plantations, so palm oil mills where they do produce biogas and they do truck them to a centralized location, for example, for either group injection or for upgrading. I think it's not as practical or commercially viable in Australia because of the distances that it has to cover, and transporting gas is always much harder. You need specialized equipment, well, compared to transporting solids or liquids. Kate, if you want to add on to that.
Yeah, normally, electrical generators are co-located with the biogas facilities. So we don't need to upgrade biogas to generate electricity. We would just need a minimum cleanup to remove moisture and H2S, basically. To transport biogas, which is still 45% carbon dioxide, doesn't really sound reasonable, and it's definitely not suitable for green injection because we have certain standards for this. Using trucks to transport something that wouldn't be actually used for electricity generation, I mean, the carbon dioxide portion doesn't sound reasonable. I'm not sure if it's technically possible, but from a logistical and commercial point of view, doesn't really sound viable to me.
And maybe just to point out, because the question mentioned about grid building the pipelines and the network, there exists sort of dedicated biogas pipelines, right? So non-upgraded biogas. Those are potentially tricky to maintain. The actual energy content that's running through those grids are also very variable, and it's a bit questionable to try and maintain such infrastructure.
Yes, agree. So the next one is very similar, I think. When considering logistics and the fact that there is fossil fuel consumption for logistics, is there a net benefit to the CO2 emissions? That's probably more for feedstock, not the gas transport. Would you like to address that one, Kevin?
Yes. So again, this is going to depend on distance. Of course, in the ideal low carbon economy, you are transporting with renewable fuels as well in the transportation. So that won't factor in as such a big challenge. in the grand scheme of things, it boils down to the life cycle carbon assessment. But if we look at analogies from other biofuel industries, say in the States or in Brazil, the CO2 emissions coming from transport of feedstock represents a very, very small fraction of the overall emissions that is created in the life cycle. So I would say that on gross, the benefit still outweighs that cost, and the way to measure and make sure that that doesn't get exceeded is to look at the carbon intensity of the fuel that comes out of it. That's being practiced a lot in sustainable aviation fuel industry because you have no pipelines that's conveying this fuel. But when it comes to biomethane, as long as you're able to inject into the grid, I think the transport process of the output is relatively efficient. It's just about the feedstock, and that represents a really, really small fraction.
Yes, and when we consider different locations, different potential locations for the facility, we of course always trying to place it as close as possible to the main source of feedstock to reduce the transportation, and of course it will be part of project emissions that we would need to consider. But yeah, that's significantly less than the avoided emissions from feedstock decomposition and also from fossil fuel consumption. So we have a couple of questions about the gas quality. There was a question about CO2, capturing and using CO2, greenhousing or food-grade gas. And there is a question about removal of impurities from biogas and how much energy we lose doing that. Probably they can all be answered together. So the biogas upgrading system, when we upgrade biogas into biomethane, will remove all impurities, carbon dioxide and all trace gases. Yeah, of course, it has certain energy consumption, but the amount of energy that we recover is significantly higher than the energy required for the process. Typically, the parasitic demand of a biogas plant that includes an upgrading facility is around 20%. And there is a significant amount of that is used to maintain the temperature of the digesters. So a portion of biogas produced by the facility is typically used for a combined heat and power unit. So making sure we have electricity to meet the parasitic demand and supply to the equipment, including the upgrading equipment and all the pumps and mixers. And the heat from the combined heat and power unit is used to maintain mesophilic temperature, the optimal anaerobic, the optimal temperature for anaerobic process. So in terms of carbon dioxide, yes, there will be carbon dioxide from biogas upgrading. It can be purified to meet the food grade. And when we look at commercial viability of the projects, it's actually quite important for us to make sure that carbon dioxide is pretty high quality and it can be used. There is a beneficial use for that product. Sometimes it significantly contribute to financial viability of the projects. It's not easy at the moment because that's a tricky market for carbon dioxide. It can be used for greenhousing, but again, it should be collocated, so we can't really transport that carbon dioxide that is not food grade too far from the source. So if we have an upgrading facility and a greenhouse just next door, yes, that would be ideal, and it could be used without any further cleaning, I think. Okay, a house. So the next one, I had a question about which energy products can complement biomethane, and wondering about cost comparison with oil and gas. Evan, would you like to answer this one? Energy products that can complement biomethane. and the cost comparison with oil and gas?
Yeah, maybe there's two parts to this. So, complementary, I've already suggested that there is actually possibility in future to refine basically to produce low carbon liquid fuels from biogas or from biomethane itself as a feedstock. So there is some complementarity there. At the same time, the biogenic CO2 that Kate just talked about could actually be used to combine with green hydrogen to produce either methane, synthetic methane, or other low carbon liquid fuels. So there is some complementarity there in terms of production of other fuels. When it comes to comparison with fossil, I'm afraid that's a tricky question because we're really not comparing like for like, given that the fossil carbon emissions needs to be properly accounted for and priced. In the report that we recently launched with ENA, the long-term sort of price expectations for the lower bracket of feedstock could be, as low as teens per gigajoules of biomethane produced. But then, producing more from agricultural feedstock will naturally cost more. Now this when you compare with our business as usual fossil natural gas there will still be a premium, which means that there needs to be policy direction to try and drive this and try and put a demand signal on that to encourage uptake. But in long term, as this process, as the supply chains get more established and the process gets more industrialized, there is still scope for cost reductions.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most common misconceptions that biogas is typically derived from waste and it should be cheap. But it's not, and it's not necessarily derived from waste, and we definitely need agricultural feedstocks for biogas production, for viable projects, and the price of biogas or biomethane, especially biomethane production, can't compete with natural gas price at the moment. That's why, it's very important for us to get support at all levels of feedstock and also for the gas biomethane supply to the grid. So we need policy support for this. And also, ideally, the use of byproducts. So digestate is actually a product. It's not a waste from the process, and it can be, it has a lot of benefits and it can be used. And then also carbon dioxide from upgrading process as well. And just want to mention that there is actually no competition with the natural gas sector. It's also one of the most common misconceptions. It's not shifting down the gas sector. It's more about decarbonizing. It's chemically identical to natural gas, so it enables the gas system to transition gradually. We're just replacing a portion of fossil gas with a renewable molecule without disrupting industry or households. It's about utilizing systems that are already in place, not extending the life of fossil fuels or natural gas sector. I think we have another question for Dale. It's about the risk of low capital productivity in the feedstock. Sorry. If the feedstock is very seasonal, the question is to be about how that challenge could be overcome. Yeah, that's probably what I already mentioned. So we, in terms of facility design and the way we process the material and store it, we always consider that risk that the material is seasonal, and it would not necessarily be available all year round. my question that I have for Dale. Find it. So one of the topics that's coming through more and more is the growing focus from governments on bioenergy and biomethane and the role that agriculture can play in that transition. So it sounds positive. We're getting some support and the farmers getting some support and attention. There is a lot of interest and discussion about incentives and support, but it can sometimes be feel unclear how that translates into something practical on the ground. So from your perspective, Dale, is there a clear pathway for how government incentives or support mechanisms might actually work for farmers? And just as importantly, what do farmers need from us as project developers to make it easier for you to participate and actually make bioenergy industry more attractive for the farmers? So government, what they can do and what we can do for you.
Fairly hard to answer that in a lot of ways. It depends on the individual farmer. From BAFA's perspective, and that's all I've been speaking about today, we don't necessarily need particular assistance from government. What we do need is a long-term offtake contract with prices that meet our expectations from LMS or whoever owns the biodigester. Government could get away from the policy of not wanting food crops to be used in energy production. That would be helpful, and the noises that we're hearing out of the Queensland Government and Department at the moment are fairly positive towards that. But essentially it comes down to the individual contract basis that we provide supply to the biodigester. There's a number of logistical issues which I think the owners of the biodigester facility could assist with. For example, transport, harvesting, coordination, which would be in your interests as well, because you'd be able to better plan the availability of feedstocks over the 12-month period. So, I think over the years we've not necessarily relied on government assistance or those particular types of things. We're actually just had a look at our own individual risk profiles, what crops suit us, how we can grow those viably. We don't, and this might be a bit controversial, but we don't necessarily have a BAFA policy on renewable fuels. We're happy to develop and work with that industry. We see existing petrochemical type fuels viable too. So, I think overall it's just working with the actual people who own the biodigester and coming up with mutually suitable commercial terms.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Dale. Another one about energy crops, the production of biomethane in Europe is significantly supported by subsidies for growing energy crops. The sale of heat and renewable energy tariffs, how does the business case in Australia adapt to not having these supports? That's a bit of a policy question. And in Europe, the biogas industry started long time ago, and yes, it did start with tariffs and subsidies for energy crops, but a few years later they realized that there is competition between the energy crops and food crops, and now I think Europe is shifting from that concept, focusing more on residue and actual waste rather than growing energy crops. Kevin, would you like to add anything on the policy side of that?
So if we look at Europe, they did spend almost a decade with feed-in tariffs biomethane grid injection, and that really helped unlock the base load in the industry. But since the emergence of since the Ukraine war, when the natural gas prices spiked, there has been increasing demand actually. So domestic gas users have been converting to direct contracts with biomethane producers, and these contracts are commercial. They're not necessarily based on subsidies or additional premiums from taxpayers. There are still subsidies that are directed to smaller plants because the smaller plants may not yet be that economical. And the smaller plants also help to drive more activities at the fringes of the gas network, which is helpful. But ultimately, there is a day when it can all become commercial. What needs to happen is that we properly recognize the cost of carbon emissions. We properly compare that against the other sources of energy, and we properly value energy security, which is something that sometimes we take for granted in Australia. And that we do need to produce some of this gas domestically to deal with possibility of shortage. The good thing about biomethane is that we've got a source of gas that is a lot less correlated with global energy prices. And that's what's been attractive to customers in Europe, and hopefully that gains traction in Australia as well.
Yes, and I think tariffs for the biomethane, that's the most important part. It's not about getting support for energy crops, but it's getting support for biomethane supply. So tariffs targets are very important. We now have a target in New South Wales, so it's a very positive move, and it's a big step for us. So we just need similar things in all other states and across the country, and that would be a way forward for us, I think.
I think it's useful, Kate, to point out that the role of policy is not just in terms of incentive, but in terms of coordinating the existing players who are, supplying gas, holding that relationship with gas users, gas customers. They then wake up to the need to include biomethane as part of the portfolio of products that they are offering to the customers. The government's policy helped to provide that sort of coordination, which is currently missing in a more market-based approach.
Yes. Okay. I think that brings us to the end of our Q&A session. Thank you to our wonderful audience for all your questions. If we didn't get to your question, please get in touch with VBN on info@bioenergy.com.au. Probably Sean will repeat it as well, and the VBN team will make sure that we get back to you with an answer. I'll now hand over to Sean to close things out for us today, and Sean will have that email address again in case you need it. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thanks, Kate. Just put that up there now, the link for you. There's some scrambling with the formatting there, but thank you for your time today. We've had a good attendee, a lot of attendees and some great questions. Yes, we will get back to your questions. We know who've sent them in, so that makes it easy to get back to you. We thank you for your time today. We have 2 more episodes coming up next year to finish out this series, and the second one is industry, the opportunities for industry, and the third one is success and what that looks like for the industry. So case studies and a focus on actual projects. So that will round out that series. There's a feedback link on the screen. That QR code will take you to a Slido poll. Apologies for the formatting, but that should work for you. If you could feed in and give us some comments on what you thought of the session, what we could do better, and also what you liked about it too, that'd be great. And so if there's any questions, can go to info@vicbioenergy.com.au. So we'll answer those. We will take the questions that are in the chat and endeavour to get back to the ones that weren't answered. And so with that, I think we are pretty much done. But thank you again to Kate for moderating, Dale for your insights from a farming perspective, and Kevin for your also your setting the context for the opportunity that biomethane presents to the broader economy, but particularly in the agricultural sector. And with that, I will say also thank you to some of our backroom people, Emma and Megan and Rachel, who have been helping out, making sure that the questions flow as smoothly as they can. There's a lot of them there that we didn't answer, apologies, but we will get back to you. So with that in mind, have a great end of year and holidays if you're having them, and we'll see you in the new year. So thank you and good afternoon.